Hey Cubers, this is Volatile again, and before I flip this card over, I just want to say I have 100 subscribers now, so thanks for that. I mean, sure, in the big scheme of things, YouTube's got 10,000, 100,000, people have a lot of subscribers, whatever, but 100 people, like, I couldn't even plan a party for 100 people without ordering, like, a building where we can all stay in, so, I mean, hey, that means a lot to me, to be able to say something that people like and people want to keep watching, so thanks for subscribing. Whatever, if you want to subscribe, that's fine too, but I'm not going to say like, oh, like, smash, that's, whatever, we're done here. I'm just going to flip this card now. Flash. Oh yeah, so this reminds me, we're going to talk about Flash, specifically in, previously my multi-card discussions have been just cards I looked through the cube and I was like, oh, I want to put these cards together, but this was actually a deck that I built last night when we cubed, and I had a ton of fun with it, and so I basically have taken the key pieces of that deck and I focused around Flash, which is a new addition to my cube. So let's see what Flash says. It says you may put a creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. If you do, sacrifice it unless you pay the mana cost reduced up to 2 mana. So, I mean, so the original printing, also let's not show that original printing art. Oh geez, I'm so glad we get a nice bear just kind of coming in here. But you're going to be flashing in something that immediately dies just so that you can get the enter the battlefield ability, or they leave the battlefield trigger, or if you have a ton of mana and it's late, you can flash it in to basically get an extra blocker. You could use this as a sort of combat trick. But realistically, what you're going to want to do is flash in something that immediately dies. And the interesting part about this, I looked at the rulings, is that you do not get priority. No player gets priority before this resolves. So you can't flash in Gristlebrand and then draw 7 cards and then sack him. It's not a delayed trigger. He gets sacrificed before this card finishes resolving. So keep that in mind. And we're going to go into the next couple of cards I was looking at. Sneak Attack. That's another way to put things into play really easily. I'm not going to talk too much about this. Basically, yeah, Sneak Attack is just a duplicate of this, but a bit more reliable. A bit more, you get to attack with it. Like Flash, I'm generally not going to be attacking with whatever I put in. Reality Scramble. I love this card. It's so funny. This kind of sets the tone for the deck in that, what is the value out of this? I'm putting the permanent I own from the bottom of my library, then reveal cards from the top until I reveal a card that shares a type with it. Then put that card into the battlefield and the rest on the bottom, and I can do this with Retrace and keep doing it. So what I took out of this card was, I need to play elves, I need to play things that are 1-drops, ramp into this, just cast Reality Scramble on an elf, and then flip that into something huge. So since I've already got these other things that will start flipping, dropping things from my hand and making those huge things attack, Reality Scramble kind of cheats them on the battlefield in another way. And even if I flip another elf, next turn I can just Retrace and try to do it again. So yeah, and this was another new addition I got, Shifting Shadow, which is 3 mana, enchant creature. Enchanted creature has haste, and at your upkeep, destroy this creature, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card, put that card onto the battlefield, and attach this to it. And then put everything else on the bottom in a random order. So it's a very similar to Reality Scramble. You're going to be, I wanted to do this, I wanted to do an elf, and then on turn 2, put Shifting Shadow on the elf, and then pray that my opponent doesn't blow it up, then I get 2 for 1, but hey, I mean, that's still 8 a card. I mean, it depends on how much you value that thing, whatever you're on, so you're going to want to put this on the lowest value card possible. So you're going to want things that have tokens, or just elves, just small 1/1. So I'm losing 2 cards, I'm still getting 2 for 1, but it's not nearly as bad. It kind of mitigates that impact. And Fyndhorn, so Fyndhorn's just so neat. So he makes tokens. I think I've talked about him before. He puts tokens on the battlefield that are a copy of a thing in your graveyard, but he doesn't ever get rid of that thing in your graveyard. He'll just keep trying. Also, I love the story and everything like that. Just this whole card is just beautiful. So he'll just keep trying to get that token back, and then that token can be used in so many different ways. So even if I flash in something early, maybe the battlefield trigger isn't that great, I can later play Fyndhorn and get that thing out of my graveyard. So the flash was kind of like a discard effect, and I kind of just got the into the battlefield trigger. So that's a neat thing. So now we're talking about our targets. What are we trying to get into? I think a lot of people would know about Battle Ball, or Meatball as we call it. It's a 7 mana 4/7, makes 4 1/1s, and then when it attacks, you can tap the Mers to give it more power and have it deal automatic damage to the defending player. So basically the Mers are going to attack unblockably, and then he's going to be like a 8/7. So you can basically use this to get 4 1/1s, you can flicker it, do a whole bunch of weird stuff, but this is one target. Then we have Woodfall Primus. Woodfall Primus is the best target for Flash. The best target. Because I ended up doing some pretty nasty stuff. Flashing in Woodfall Primus means destroy target non-creature permanent. It dies because it gets sacrificed. Then it persists to destroy another non-creature permanent. I've used this to basically blow up 2 lands of my opponent and then block with a 5/5 Trampler. And that's pretty nuts for 2 mana. But again, I'm spending 2 whole cards. The reason why I think Flash is so interesting is because I am spending 2 whole cards. I have to have this and this in order to get value. I can't just flash in anything. If I have Flash with like Reality Scramble, Flash with Elves, there's not many things. I only have like a handful of targets where Flash is really good. But when it's good, it's like really good. It can be like really, really high devastating plays. So you get kind of like this Reanimator's type effect. And I would have tried to gone into Reanimator, but somebody was pulling those black reanimation spells instead of me. So that was hard to get into, and I was like, okay, I can just do this. I can just do this like Trixie off the top of the deck manipulation. Here's another target, Dragon Lord Atarka, 7 mana, 8/8 flying trample. When she enters, deal 5 damage divided among target creatures or planeswalkers your opponents control, not their face. You cannot hit their face. Again, I've totally misplayed this card, but now I know. So at worst case, again, I'm gonna like flash in Atarka, and I'm gonna get 5 damage divided amongst things. Like, that's okay. Again, I'm spending 2 cards, but that's a lot of effort. But also, I can get this now into my graveyard. Feldon can start making copies of it. You just have to get these synergies out here where eventually 2 cards line up and it gets like an amazing huge ceiling. So kind of a no more targets anymore, but I'm going to start looking at helper pieces. So Awakening Zone is just good at making mana, so eventually I should be able to cast these expensive things like Atarka, because I'm making 1 extra mana a turn off of these spawns, but also they make tokens that I can put under Reality Scramble. I can Reality Scramble them away or put Shifting Shadow on. So then I'm not really getting 2 for 1. If I put Shifting Shadow on a token and then they kill the token, like I just 1 for 1. I just traded the Shifting Shadow. So as long as that thing is low quality, like a 0/1 token that's half for mana, you don't really care so much that you're losing card advantage. Now, this was a funny one. I didn't get to duplicate anything. I really, really wanted to. This is from the Battle Bond set. 4 mana, 4/4. When it enters the battlefield, you can pay 1 and a green to get a copy of a creature that's enters, a non-token creature that enters the battlefield near your control. So theoretically, if this is in play, I can play. So I have 4 mana and I just cast this. Now I can play 2 mana for Flash and 2 mana for this trigger. And now I get the enter the battlefield twice, and I get a token that's a copy of the thing I flashed in. So again, just increasing those synergies, getting these things to line up such that if I have enough things that have like decent synergies with each other, they're going to eventually mesh together and make this really powerful effect. And that's hopefully how I'll win the game. Another thing we got is Pia and Kieran. So they're going to put 2 1/1 flying Thopters, and then of course they're going to be able to sacrifice an artifact to deal 2 damage to a creature or player. This synergizes pretty decently with the Mer Meatball, because the Mer Meatball also makes 1/1 artifacts, and so you can just kind of like pitch those with this if you have a lot of mana and a lot of time on your hands to kill things that you don't like dealing with. But just being able to flicker this, or being able to get a duplicate of it with Bramble Sovereign, now I'm going to get a 2/2 with 4 1/1s. You know, it's all just marginal benefit. Or even off of the Reality Scramble, now I'm going to get 1/1s. Now I can Reality Scramble those 1/1s instead of this. So there's just tons of value in here. I didn't end up actually playing with Virtuous Gear Hulk. It was on my sideboard because the target's on it. It basically, most of the time it's going to try and put the +1/+1s on itself because it already has Trample. So you can have 5 mana, 8/8 Trample. But being able to put the +1/+1s on something else, it was kind of very conditional. If I didn't have another creature in play, he would often just like, if I had to Reality Scramble into him, he was like, okay, that's a big guy, but he can still just die. He doesn't have any like lasting effect. So I didn't actually play him, but he's an option in case you have more dudes in your deck. Then finally, our advantage. So since I'm going to be 2 for 1ing myself to get these really powerful effects, late game, I'm going to have to basically regain that card advantage somehow. So Fact or Fiction digs me into strong cards, and it will always let me choose the strongest out of the top 5. So even if my opponent does a 1/4 split, I can always get one of the strongest card out of the top 5, or 4 cards just in pure value. So it's always going to be like, Fact or Fiction is like some of the most insane draw, and it's an instant. You can just like end a turn, do this, get your 2 to 3 best cards, and then you draw a card. It's really quite crazy. So I run very little draw, but Fact or Fiction is like premium draw. Then finally, the kind of like the glue pieces. These are really necessary to make the deck come together, but we've got the trifecta of elves. Arbor Elf, which untaps forest, of course, so that had to be primary green. Llanowar Elf, another one that just basically is green mana, had to be primary green, and Birds of Paradise. So this was a 4-color deck. It was non-white, which is my favorite deck to make, because I don't know, I don't like white as much, but I like the things that all the other colors do. But I ended up cutting black. I think I had Damnation and Pernicious Deed. And those are super good for controlling the board, but if I really wanted to get that combo out first game, I basically, these were dead cards. They were very reactive. So this was a very proactive deck. I wanted to just flash in something. I wanted to get it very effective. So I ended up, I still wanted this birds no matter what, but I ended up cutting the black and then later adding it in if necessary to get those field wipes. Now, another new addition, I've got Orcish Lumberjack. Oh man, red for a 1/1, tap and sack a forest to add 3 mana. This guy is crazy in any combination of red and green to your mana pool. This guy is so nuts that I could do turn 1 PN Karen. I could do turn 2. I could do turn 2, what's that guy? The Gear Hulk. I could do turn 2 Gear Hulk with Orcish Lumberjack and just a forest and a mountain. Mountain, this guy, forest, tap 2 for mana, and then sack the forest to get 5 mana, boom. Now I have an 8/8 trample on turn 2. Like, that's really neat. So I ended up using this to possibly get out Sneak Attack early, to get out Bramble Sovereign, like anything that was like high impact, but it does have a huge cost. Sacking these lands is not like to be taken lightly. So if I just if I just do this for Bramble Sovereign, I'm really iffy on that, because if that Bramble Sovereign gets removed, now I just lost a forest as well. So he's really cool, really good at mana ramp. Try him out if you like mana acceleration, but he's kind of dangerous. Then finally, Pentad Prism. This was super clutch, actually. When I played against my opponent, he had Thalia. And Thalia, the 2-mana Thalia that makes non-creatures cost 1 more. And I couldn't have done this play without basically having this Pentad Prism cost 3 mana. So with 3 mana, I put red, green, and black into it. And so it gave me 3 counters because of Sunburst. It was nuts. It was really crazy, and it was just a really neat interaction. The fact that you can remove both counters from Pentad Prism at the same time, so it is kind of like a 2-mana ramp. But yeah, it was a super fun deck. These are the kind of interactions. I find this a lot easier to talk about these interactions in a deck, in an actual environment, and a thing that I ended up drafting, as opposed to just in a vacuum where I'm like, oh, this card could do this or that. So I'm probably going to do this a bit more often. But hey, hopefully you enjoyed it. I'll see you next time.